Up next on the Forum, scammers bilk up to $3 billion every year from the elderly population. Get the latest on what to watch out for during the holidays. And while New Year's resolutions may seem foreign and silly in the face of death and grieving, you may still be able to resolve to fit where you are in the process. Don't go away. Human Services Forum begins right now. Hello and welcome to the Forum. As the holiday season starts warming up, so do opportunities for fraudulent activities. Seniors are the most at risk. In fact, the research shows that as many as 5 million older adults are victims of abuse and financial exploitation. Fran Anderson, director at the Center for Aging, Senior Services of Southeastern Virginia, joins us, along with Ben Waterton, Adult Protective Services social worker with the Norfolk Department of Human Services. Thank you for sharing some good information for people who may have elderly parents or relatives who may themselves be getting calls that they're not sure about or getting things in the mail. Maybe you're online and you're getting emails from something or someone that you're not sure about. At any rate, there are people that can even approach you and act like they're your friend, and they may not really be doing anything in your best interest. So financial exploitation is a big problem for seniors.
Yes, it is, and it's going to get bigger as the population ages, as the baby boomers get to be 65. And the statistics show that by the year 2030, 20% of our population will be 65 and older. And that's almost double what it was in 2007.
Wow. So we have a lot to prepare for. And there are an awful lot of bad ideas floating around that, when I say bad, I mean just not good ideas that are looking to take advantage of people who may be in a position to have some money or have a pension or something that is easy for people to get a hold of. Now, Ben, as a social worker, you encounter situations frequently where people are being taken advantage of or may be in a vulnerable position where the worst can happen.
That's right. I can say in my experience with the Department of Human Services, we do unfortunately get a frequent amount of calls pertaining to exploitation. Typically, it is a caregiver or family member that is involved. And then if there's major changes in somebody's bank accounts, we're fortunate to have the banks contact us and make reports. And if necessary, we can also use a division of the Norfolk Police Department, the Economic Crimes Unit. I personally have used them in one of my cases, and they're a very good resource. They have access to information that myself as a social worker and my peers do not.
And it's great to have that kind of support, like particularly from law enforcement, because often when you're talking about things such as exploitation or abuse, it doesn't always have the legs to walk on. You don't have the proof, or you don't have the documentation, or it's very difficult to get a hold of. So that must be just a huge help.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We're very fortunate to have this resource now. We didn't previously have them. I found them very helpful.
Yeah, well, great. It's good to know that residents in Norfolk, and I'm sure other localities, may have either something like that or maybe by a different name, but something similar. Fran, with Senior Services, I know you deal with seniors from all walks of life, but when you're older and have to depend on others for more things, it naturally makes you more vulnerable, and that's where people see the chink in the armor.
Yes, I think that isolation is probably the biggest risk factor for abuse or financial exploitation. So people who are living alone or don't have that family support or aren't involved in some kind of activities are much more prone to be targeted. So it's important that older adults be involved, that they have contact with their family, with their neighbors, they attend a club or church group, something that gives them a chance to socialize and have contact with others.
I guess that can also be said for if you have a neighbor who, or know somebody that is more isolated and doesn't have a lot of contact with family, or is to maybe just check in on them every once in a while.
Yes,
Find out how they're doing.
that's important. And a lot of people now don't even live close to their parents. They live across the country, and we often get phone calls from adult children who are concerned about their parents, but they're not living locally, so they really don't have the ability to go and check on them and see how they're doing. So we always recommend that they find someone else who can, again, a neighbor, a member of a church, somebody who's willing to go and maintain that regular contact.
Well, just know there are a lot of lonely people out there that do need your help or just some attention, and it might keep them from doing something that would be harmful to them. You're dealing with adults who are in vulnerable positions and find that they may have gotten into some kind of trouble, whether you mentioned the banks contacting you, which is something that took a while for that to gain momentum, but now is not an unusual thing at all for somebody from a bank to say, we have some concerns.
That's right, especially if it's really obvious activity, whereas there have been large amounts of money withdrawn in a small frame of time. That's a red flag right there, and anybody should pick up on that.
Right. Well, if somebody is withdrawing money from, say, an older adult, and it's just not the kind of activity that usually takes place, then someone is clearly taking advantage of these people. But there are things you can do, things you can put in place to maybe monitor this and maybe even stop that activity from occurring. Do you have some suggestions on what people might do, whether it's the older adult or perhaps family members themselves who may not live nearby, that can perhaps put some stopgap measures in there?
I think the older adult or the family, if they make sure that they regularly review the bank statements, that's just a basic safeguard that should be happening. Even if the older adult is reviewing it, I think it's good for family to also just do the double check.
Okay. As long as they're allowed to.
Yes, right.
Because that conversation can be difficult too, is trying to talk to your older parents about finances.
It is. It's difficult, but it's a subject that really needs to be broached, and the sooner the better before the person really gets in a position where they need that. It's good to talk about it and get power of attorneys in place in case it's needed, get that estate plan fixed, all those things that you need to do when someone does start to lose the capacity to take care of those things themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And the power of attorney is a big deal, but it can even, well, it can prevent certain dire things from occurring, but there can be issues with that as well. If that person has the power of attorney, may have access to things and that you cannot really control, and they don't know.
And so as social workers, you really have to take a couple steps back and examine the dynamics of the relationship between caregiver and family member and client, and see really what's going on there. You want to look for legitimacy. I tell people all the time in these sorts of instances, if they don't have an estate planned or power of attorney set up, they need to do that immediately, because if something happens to the person again down the road and bills are needing to be paid and stuff is getting behind, we're going to get a call about it again. So it really needs to be taken care of as early as possible. On the same token, there could be those, unfortunately, who use that title, that power, to their advantage. Okay, and that's what I meant when we as social workers have to take a step back and find out what's going on there.
Okay.
And take steps to fix it.
Which is a very different role than, say, a bank calling and saying, well, we've got this issue and we're concerned, but having to explore the relationships that that person may have, or what does make them more open to having some sort of fraudulent act committed. not in their best interest. So what about people who hire folks to come in and, you know, do work for them or what have you around the house? These are concerns too. What can people do to make sure that who they're bringing in is going to be about as safe a person as possible?
They need to make sure that they get references and that they check credentials and make sure that these people are on the up and up. There's a lot of home repair frauds going around. These people come door to door and say, oh, I can rebuild your bathroom, I can do this, I can do that for some unbelievable deal, and then get a signature on a contract and then aren't seen again. So those kind of situations really need to be researched carefully. The same with having help come into your home to cook your meals, clean your house, things like that. Need to make sure that they're reputable people, and may need to have a criminal background check done, things like that.
Okay. Which can be hard for someone who might just think, oh, but he or she is such a nice person. They're so nice to me, or they may be very charming or what have you, but they don't have, you don't think, you know, I don't need to check on those things.
And we do hear that a lot. You know,
bet.
they're very nice people, you know, but
and that's where you go. I mean, that's grabbing people's hearts and their trust, which is, you know, can't tell people not to trust others, but you got to do it with a, you know, with some smarts, and it's not always what takes over.
right.
When somebody comes along and wants to get what you've got. It's a sad state of affairs, but it's good to know that there are people like Ben who are out there to help, that we have support from the community. And the Senior Services is certainly taking a role in trying to get the word out about. Just think twice, and if you do have somebody in your life who is older, who may be vulnerable, check on them, find out, you know, how they're doing, and see if you can't do something to give them those stopgap measures so that they're not getting taken advantage of. So they
And
don't
we
become
have a
statistics.
lot of resources too at Senior
Yeah.
Services, things that if we don't provide directly, we can certainly make referral. So our number is 757-461-9481, and so either older adults, family members, people in the community, anyone can feel free to call, and we'll be happy to help them find the resources that they need.
Okay. And of course, if you have any suspicions that somebody might be suffering from some sort of abuse, and financially or otherwise, you can certainly call the Norfolk Department of Human Services Adult Protective Services, 664-1234. Correct?
6123.
Oops, 6123. Sorry about that, 664-6123. Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Fran, for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, don't go away. We'll be right back with some helpful guidance for those who are just trying to survive all the New Year hoopla when grief over the loss of a loved one is all you feel.
Have you heard? The U.S. Treasury is phasing out paper checks for Social Security, VA, and other federal benefit payments and going electronic. If you currently receive federal benefits by paper check, you will need to switch to direct deposit or to the Treasury recommended Direct Express Debit MasterCard. If you plan to apply for federal benefits soon, you'll want to decide which electronic payment option is right for you. Visit godirect.org to learn more or to make the switch today.
I know, 2 seconds. Hang on, just stand still. Stand still, love. 1 second. I know. Just okay, go, go, go. No. Boys, hang on, boys.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of children in foster care who will take you just as you are.
Grieving the loss of a friend, spouse, or family member does not take a holiday, but the world around us seems to carry on. Is there anything one can do to start looking ahead and moving forward? Elaine Roberts, founder of Still Standing, a suicide survivors support group, joins us, along with Marge House, who's a facilitator for a Christian faith-based program known as Grief Share. Both of these organizations are here to help folks who may just need somebody to talk to share their thoughts, their feelings, during a time that is unique to each person. Yet it's amazing how much they share. So bringing people together is one way to begin the healing. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Well, we had talked about the holidays in the past. Now, Elaine and I had spoken about some of the ways that people might cope, or even if you know somebody that is dealing with this, how does your behavior, how can you help them in a way that makes you feel okay and comfortable, and also does the same for the person or friend in your life. So now we've got, we're in the throes of the holiday season, and which means tradition. And doing things with the people we love. It can be a very, very poignant time for some. It's a very sweet time for others, and very painful for the first time for some folks. I know that with Elaine, you've got a group for people who may have lost a loved one to suicide.
That's right, specifically for suicide.
Right. Still Standing has been having ongoing meetings for...
Since March, the second Tuesday of the month, at Spring Branch Community Church, and Marge's group is at Spring Branch as well, and I'm so glad that she was able to join us because they meet every week, and it's about grieving from loss of all kinds. Marge?
Yes. Right. Grief Share is, as you said, a faith-based, Christian faith-based curriculum. We invite anybody of any faith to join us. We meet. It's a 13-week series, and it consists of an educational component so that we learn about and understand our grief better, which helps us cope better. Also gives us tools to be able to get through the difficult times and to get through day by day, minute by minute. We meet on Tuesday evenings from 6:30 to 8:30. It's a 13-week series, and we kind of call it the emergency room. It's for folks that are experiencing a new grief. Many come a couple years afterwards, but it's the first time they've had a chance to really address their grief.
Yes.
So it's a curriculum that gives us that grief education. It's a time to come together and comfort, support each other. And as a facilitator, I get to just sit in the room and bring people together. It's a marvelous group. It's a great way for people to get the support and feel less isolated. Grief can be very isolating and make us feel nobody understands what we're going through, and yet we can come into a room together and share that.
And realize there are many people that may understand you better than you thought.
Yes.
Just to point out, too, the Grief Share is also available. These programs are available throughout
the country, internationally, actually. At griefshare.org, people can put in their zip code and find a group that's very close to them. They bring on 60 to 70 new groups a month.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
That tells you a lot about, well, the fact that there are more people that need it, or more people that are willing to go that direction. I thought it was interesting, you said a little earlier that, you know, sometimes grief is new to people. They are there because it's new and it's raw, but there are some that come a couple of years afterwards, after they've lost someone, because maybe they either didn't know this existed or maybe they weren't ready for it. There might be other reasons, too, as to why people show up when they do.
Absolutely. We've had one woman several years ago that attended. She lost her sister in childhood, and her parents were not able to really help her work through that. So she came 25 years later, and really it was fresh. It was very fresh for her. It may be that people aren't ready for a group immediately. It could be they have been in a location where they can't get to it. They don't realize the value sometimes of being with others.
So how, you say it's a 13-week long session. It's like an hour a week or a
2
couple of
hours.
2 hours a week.
Yes.
That's intensive.
Yes, it is. It's usually a 40 to 45 minute DVD that we watch for the educational part. We also have workbooks that we kind of work in throughout the week so that we discuss some component of that workbook. Daily meditation session, and then just talk about what's going on and how, and it's interesting, new people get a little bit more time because they need to tell their story, but it's a chance for people to tell their story and share their grief and get that support back.
Yeah, and in a place where it's okay to do that.
Yes.
Right, okay to do that. I mean, that's very important. It's a trusted, both groups are very trusted, they're private, they can be themselves. They don't have to pretend it's okay. They're not at work. You know, they're not out where people think that, well, they should be getting on with it, you know, because they're still suffering. And at both of these groups, they can be themselves and talk about where they are in the process. And that's very important. I've had 2 to 3 people come 25 years later because they lost a parent from suicide. And so they're now coming.
Yeah.
So
Elaine's probably experienced this too. Many times people will say, this is a club I would never have chosen to belong to, but I am so glad this is here so that we can be a part of it. It's a safe place.
it's a safe place.
Yeah.
That's right. And I think that because they're going through so much pain, and everyone is an individual, but they were used to enjoying holiday traditions, whatever those traditions are for you. And now they just don't want to, they just want to go to sleep and pass the holiday up, or we talked last night about communicating and compromising for the sake of the family if you can, but if you cannot, you've got to communicate. I'm struggling. I can't do that. Maybe this is what I can do. Don't you agree with that, Marge?
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things we recommend is they even sit down and write a letter to their friends and family and say, this is what I'm this is what it's feeling like right now. This is what I can do. This is what I really can't do this year. And so everybody has that information, and some of the goals maybe that I have for the next year, and this is where I'm going to need your support. If it's self-care, that I'm going to take care of myself, I want to maybe walk a little bit, and maybe that family member can be the one to have that information and walk with them to improve their how they're feeling, their well-being.
Well, it is all about communicating, not only getting your own feelings out there to others who may share your grief more closely because they've lost someone also, but just to be able to communicate with those in your world that aren't feeling maybe the same thing you're feeling, but they are people that are alive and they're here and they're the ones that are part of your life and are important.
Right, they want to still be part of your life.
Yeah, it's hard, and everybody has a different idea of what it is that they want to do. Writing it down is a great idea because it does make you think about actually, well, if you're not saying it, at least you're writing it. Sometimes, well, it's out there. Now I've said it. Well, it's a wonderful way to be able to communicate with people. I'm sure that people are surprised at themselves when they start writing.
They're profound. They'll bring them to group and share, and it's just profound, the lessons they're learning about themselves and finding out about themselves. And the appeal for help is just so compelling.
Yeah. And I'm sure as a facilitator, it's very rewarding to see people leave a meeting and feel like maybe they've gained something that they didn't have when they'd first walked in the door.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. Now, do you have people that come back?
We do. We run the groups. As soon as we finish, in a few weeks, we start another one. So they're run throughout the year. And many times, folks are welcome to come throughout the time that we're running the group. So we don't say after we start, we close the group. It's open the entire time, so that maybe they came in towards the end, they want to do another session. That is great, another series. So we have some folks that go through the first time and then say, okay, now I'm ready to learn more. I'm going to go through it a second time.
Sometimes, yeah, second time you pick up other things that you may not
And
have
then
noticed.
the third time we'll pick them up as a facilitator.
That's right. Oh, there you go. But also just the feelings that you have evolve too with time and
Absolutely.
can change. So there might be somebody who's fresh with the grief, but in a couple of years may have other things that bubble up.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that as a facilitator, when I see someone that I've seen having a difficult time speaking when they first come, and you can just see they've just got that dark veil of grief on them, and when I see them reaching out to other new people who come, participants, I go, oh, they're healing.
Yep.
It's not that we're going to get over it. We're not going to say that at all. Marge and I both lost children, and others have lost spouses and parents, but you will at least heal so that you can go through the pain. And when I see them helping the others, I go, oh, good, they're getting better. They're getting stronger. And it's about getting stronger, don't you think, Marge?
Getting stronger, healing, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, I think being able to help carry somebody else through a very difficult process or be a part of that support, not just being the one supported, but through your process, being able to be a part of helping others must feel tremendously good, and it does make you think outside yourself, which, is important too. That you can know, again, that yes, there is a world outside of me, and there are others who may have, maybe they can benefit from something that I have experienced. So we've run out of time, I'm afraid. But thank you for the information on Grief Share. It's available throughout the area. Marge, be happy to take your call and refer you if need be, or come to Spring Branch. And of course, thank you, Elaine, as always, for your information on a very difficult process in suicide and preventing it. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time. Bye.